Welcome to Work Life Cyber. Today we are going to talk about risk. In my other videos, and I think I will probably post that video before this one. So in my previous video, I talked to you guys about risk, vulnerability, the differences between risk, vulnerability, and a threat. So I'm going to now focus so much on risk. I can focus on vulnerability as well, but I'm not going to do a whole video just about vulnerability because I don't necessarily focus on vulnerability. You do a lot of scanning, you do a lot of patching to take away the vulnerability, you do a lot of fixes for the vulnerability. So I would rather recommend a friend, a very dear friend of mine, Camille, very smart guy, who has a YouTube channel called, I think it's called Camille Sec. I should have verified. If I don't forget, I will link his video to this. I think I will link him to most of my videos. I have to make a mental note because he's very good. I used him a lot. He's a natural friend that I know. So he talks a lot about vulnerability scanning. He even has a whole demonstration about how to use Nexus, a type of vulnerability scanner, a very popular one. So if you know it, I'm sure you know, you'll be able to do a lot of the vulnerability, a lot of other tools. So I'm saying all this to say that I'm not going to do a detailed video on vulnerability. Maybe I will, I don't know. But because I run out of things to say, things to make videos on. But always check Camille Sec out. It's Kamilsec. He's even starting a class very soon, so I recommend them highly. Very smart guy. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about risk. If you remember from my previous video, risk is likelihood versus impact. Likelihood of a threat happening versus by impact. You're saying that if we leave our door ajar, someone will come in and steal. If we don't have a secure password, a complex password, hackers can get access to our entire network. That's a risk. If we don't have backup and recovery plan, the likelihood of ransomware actually happening is very high. So if we don't have a backup and recovery plan, then ransomware, we're actually going to have to pay the bad guys, right? For if they capture or steal our data and say, hey, if you don't pay me this amount, I am not going to give you your data back. And if you don't have any backup, you would have to pay the ransom. And these things are expensive. And chances are they will take the money and still not give you your data back, right? Because at this point, they have proprietorship over your information. And so they will give it back. But 3 years down the road, they'll tell you we still have it. And if you don't give us money, we're going to expose it. Lawsuit is not fun. So you will probably continue to pay. So backup and recovery is the mitigation step or the plan. Remember, risk is a possibility. Always think of it as this way. A possibility, a likelihood of something happening and the impact it will have on the company. So when you talk of risk, everything is estimation. Everything is, so there's no, when you get to a job, there's no cookie cutter way of assessing risk, but you have to be very intuitive, and it comes with working on the job for a long. So risk is possibility, likelihood. What is the estimation that if we don't get a VPN, but we have remote workers, but we don't have any VPN, we don't have any form of VPN thing going on. We don't have control over who is on what network. Do you know what that can happen? People don't care much about their personal, they don't even know their personal networks. So hackers are just flaunting and probably using their internet for free that they don't know. The average person doesn't know how to protect their network, you know. So if a whole company has a VPN, doesn't have a VPN, their own VPN, and individuals are accessing through their own network, you know what can happen is a likelihood. The risk of using personal networks, personal internet, you will use your personal internet without a company VPN, is that you are very exposed. The likelihood becomes 100 times higher if the organization doesn't have any VPN to kind of, and firewall rules to kind of monitor what is going on in people's homes. Chances are there's going to be a hacker. Look, don't even, yeah. So think of it as likelihood. The moment it actually happens. So as a risk analyst, as a risk personnel, all you're doing is going one step ahead of the bad actors, because it hasn't happened yet. Immediately it happens. Immediately bad actors, a ransomware hits. It's an event. It's an incident. It's when it's no longer a risk. The risk has happened, correct? But before it happens, before an incident happens, before a bad event happens, it's a risk. You're only speculating. You're stepping ahead of the game and saying, hey, I think we should protect our data center. I think, don't only think technical. Once you're hired as a risk analyst, a risk personnel, a compliance person, an IT audit, you're not only thinking technical. You're not only thinking, oh, what do we, PII, EPA, yes, most of it revolve around this, but there is physical doors, there are windows. Thieves can get into it. You have to check all these things. Are cameras there? You check anything that comes to your mind that you think can help protect the organization's assets. You do it. You bring it out. You process it. You do a presentation to management and let them know the possibility of something happening before it happens. Once this happens, it's an event. You're probably going to pay a lot of money. It's an exposure. It's no longer a risk. Once it happens, problem has already happened. Once a risk becomes an event, right? Okay, so how do you assess a risk? You assess a risk, one, by identifying what risk is there anyway. If you're in the healthcare field, the risk that is there is possible exposure of PII, EPI, PHI, and for some major hospitals, PCI, payment card information. Assessing, if you're a risk assessor, you are at the bus stop and you hear an employee saying, oh, hey, can you log into my account and make sure that I clocked out? Here's my password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Got it? As a risk analyst, you quickly go like, hey, we need to talk. You actually schedule a meeting with the person and try to figure it out, train them and let them know there's training and awareness too. It all falls on you. If it's a big company, then training and awareness go to someone else. You assess, you have, so that's not an assessment actually, that's just identifying. So we're still talking about assessment because you have to identify the risk and prioritize it. You know, you identify it, you categorize it, and you prioritize by the levels. How high, how low. Remember, risk is only a likelihood. What is the likelihood of something happening? If it's high, you give it a high priority. Let's put policies in place. Let's put statements. So now you have identified that there is a risk of exposure, information exposure, EPHI or PHI, personal information exposure. Okay, how can we protect against it? You go into the HIPAA. Remember how you go into any form of government website or trusted website to read about the HIPAA rules and recommendations, and you select 2 or 3 that your company can actually implement. Okay? And that becomes a policy. Once you go to HIPAA, NIST, wherever framework you use, to select information, to select rules or recommendation, and actually implement it in your company, it becomes a policy statement. And every year you review it. You're going to review it and say, in my company where I work now, my boss said that if it's 51% done, it's a policy. We're putting it on. Because if you don't do it and you're audited, you're going to fail. Anything on your policy statement, I know it. I digress. But I have to be quick because my kids just stepped out. They will be back in probably 10 minutes. So anyway, So that's a risk. That's how you're assessing a risk. You identify it, identify it, you categorize it, whether it's high, low, or medium. And this is a daily thing because every day something new comes. An IT person, someone in the IT admin team will say, hey, the business said they want to bring this vendor on. And you're saying, okay, good, no problem. But they're going to process, this vendor is going to be in charge of, and every company has a process because before any business can request that an app, maybe they need a new app or they need a new vendor, an app to count money, whatever it is, an app to count the patient, an app to record patient status and things like that. Whatever it is, as a risk analyst, the first thing you say is, does it involve PII, EPHI, PCDI, any information, patient information, right? Once they click yes, that's when your antennas go ding, ding, ding. Okay, now we need to talk. Who is hosting the PHI? Sometimes they come back and say, oh, the app is not going to store the EPHI and IPII. It's just going to process it. Okay, fine. Still need to know the security posture of the vendor. So what are we going to, how is the vendor's security posture? Do they have password protection? Do they have MFA? Do they train their employees? Do they do background checks? Yeah, you ask all these things. Do they do background checks before they bring employees on? It's a whole set of questions that you are already, probably the company already has these questions. So they answer all these questions and then you are going to say, okay, they are not storing the information. They are not storing the EPHI and PII and PCDI, PCI. We are storing it. So that's good. But what happens in transit? Because the physician or the nurses are going to punch it in. The application is going to process it, whatever the application is, whether it's billing application, whether it's physician application. They put the patient in, patient name, address your boy. Patient age, 25. What? I am 25. What's your problem? 25. And then they put, where does patient live? In a mansion in Hollywood or no, in a mansion in Fiji or somewhere. And actually, okay. Then they put it in. All these are information. But the company, the vendor is saying, or the requester, the person who is requesting that we bring this new app, is saying that, oh, they don't store they don't store patient information, they don't store any. Well, they don't store it, but once you put it in for it to process, so they don't store the information, they just process it. I'm talking way too much on this. I probably should do just a video on risk assessment. But once they are processing, what is going to happen if they get hacked whilst I'm typing in these things? The bad actor has all these information. So what happens to data in transit? As a risk analyst, you are protecting data in transit, you're protecting data at rest. So once it's processed and transmitted, now it becomes, we are hosting it. So even though they are not hosting it, we still have to check their security posture because their app is the one processing it. Does it make sense? So you do all these assessments. Risk assessment is a daily thing. You can't just take one day to assess it. Even as you're walking to the break room, you hear two girls or boys talking and one is like, oh, I saw this cute, what's the thing, jump drive. It was a Hello Kitty. And you know how I love cats. I can't wait to see what is on this jump drive. I found it on my way coming. And you immediately go like, no. Don't plug it in anywhere. Don't even plug it in your personal computer. You know, this is immediately, you sit her down, you train her immediately, 5 minutes training on what could happen if you plug in a random flash drive into any of our computers. Not even on your own computer for your own safety. And then you put in an incident. Yes, we are that serious about our work. You put in an incident saying that someone found this, and what is the mitigation for this? Or what is the remedy for this? You immediately launch a training and awareness. Or if you are in a big company where you are not the risk, I used to be in a company where I was the risk analyst and the training and awareness personnel. So you launch a training and awareness about safety regarding flash drives. My recording is about to end because my sister's calling. Anyway, so that's how you do risk assessment. It's a lot of things. The formal one is sending out questionnaires and reviewing the answers. The informal one is your daily activities. In a meeting, you realize that someone's background is a computer that shows her screen. You know how some of the people have like 5 computers surrounding them? So they're on video, they are not caring. But there's information showing of people's names and their ages, maybe not their ages, but just the names, and they don't think it's anything because, but as a risk analyst, you send them a quick 5-second private message. Hey, your screen is exposed. Can you cover it? And then they will probably shut it down or do a background for the app video or something. And then it doesn't end there. You speak with your manager. You talk about safety surrounding Teams video and what you can expose. The company I'm in now, we have an internal kind of social media thing. We realize that people are posting pictures of babies and they're happy. But then you see that the nurses' screens are there and exposed, So we immediately added it to our policy list. And then we started talking about it on our training and awareness kind of panel. So you identify the risk, you categorize it, whether it's high, low, because something like exposure and things like that, even though you're going to, it's probably a medium, because it's intranet, it's within the company. We're not going anywhere with it, but you still have to do it. You categorize it a medium. And then a high will be like, oh my goodness, if this gets exposed, we're going to get shut down. We're going to be sued. We're going to be breached. The serious ones, right? I'll find time and give examples of what is considered high, what is considered medium, what is considered low. It's really perspective. But after a while in working in this, you see that high is high everywhere, But when it comes to low and medium, it depends on the company and what they are doing. So, so you categorize, then you prioritize. How do you treat risk? Now this video is becoming too long. Should I make another video just on treatment? Okay, I'll just list it. You treat risk 4 ways. 4 ways. I said 4 ways, showing 10 hands. 4 ways. You either accept the risk, you avoid the risk, you mitigate the risk, or you transfer. You accept the risk by saying the cost of trying to mitigate this risk is way high, and the thing, if it breaks, we'll just buy another one. It's not a big deal, It's not that important. If someone, in the intranet, social media, we don't care for it, or we don't need cameras and windows and security for this room. It's just this storage room, and it doesn't link to any other room. Once you break into it, you can't break anywhere else. We don't care. Just put a padlock there. We will accept it. Or that's acceptance. Or mitigate. Hey, this thing is serious. We gotta find places. Remember, risk is just a possibility. So we see this risk. We now have to put in the bolts. We have to check and make sure that this never happens. The likelihood is high, and the impact will be detrimental if it happens. So let's put all our resources in, even if it costs 100,000. Let's put all the processes in place to make sure that this never happens. Or transfer. That's when you have cybersecurity insurance. That's how you have all these insurance. If it happens, you transfer it straight to the insurance company. Let them deal with it. Let them pay. Let them do the mitigation, litigation. Let them talk with the lawyers. We don't want to handle it. So you invest in legal team to handle it. So in case it happens, then I will find time and give examples for all these, because this video is already 20 minutes. Someone told me my videos are too long. And then what was the one? You avoid it. Avoid it at all costs. We don't want to see it. That one too, you spend a lot of money on it to make it happen. We don't want it. We don't want to see it. That's when a vendor comes in, you see the risk that he can possibly bring in, and you say, nope. You as a security analyst, you will say, cease and desist from this vendor. They don't have any security policies in place. They don't have their security posture is weak. And when you work with them, we're going to get breached. We're going to get sued. It's messy. Cease and desist. Again, remember, as a risk analyst, you only give recommendations. you're not the boss. So you're going to do presentation, you're going to write a report and give it to, after you've done your assessment, and present it to your leaders. You present it to the CFO, the requester, the person requesting for the app. You requested, depending on the company, whatever team, you go there and you do a presentation. I usually don't do PowerPoint presentation because I just write a report. Because whilst I'm going through it, I'm just typing a simple report. I'm typing in, okay, I'm looking on the screen and typing in my observations, my recommendation. You just recommend. Sometimes they'll say, we don't care, we want it. It's up to them. But at least you have documentation when you're audited that you did tell them that this is blah, 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 blah. And they would say that they don't have any other, and it has happened with me before. The security posture was very weak for this vendor, but they didn't have other vendors who do it. And there weren't a lot of vendors who do it. So they took it like that. Yes. And then there are times where a vendor comes in, we don't get any information from them. I just type cease and desist from this vendor because he's dangerous. Of course, with my manager's approval. And we sent it to them. The business said, sure, we'll look for another vendor. And they did. You see, so that's how you treat vendors. I hope I haven't been all over the place. Risk assessment and risk treatment. How you present risk to the organization. Any risk you find, you present it to the organization and you let them know steps that can be put in place to remedy these or prevent these risks from happening. All right, guys. Again, I am doing ISC2. They have a free certification, certificate in cybersecurity. It's free. Sign up for it. It's 100% free. Sign up for it. They give you 180 days to complete it. It's a 12-week thing, and then you can write an exam. You don't have to write the certification, but hey, it will look good on your resume. So this is everything I learned. I will make a video of it. So hopefully we'll be consistent moving forward. All right. Thank you so much. Please subscribe and hit the notification button so that we can learn together. Thank you.